Well, his story is the movie Rudy on steroids. We're all looking for a pick-me-up. My guest is the recipe to make that happen. Jerrold Smith II, formerly of the UCLA basketball team, joins us. He's always got his game face on. Jerrold, thanks for doing this.
No problem. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, absolutely. So Jerrold is on Twitter, Jerrold H. Timms. I'm on Twitter at Brian Fenley. This is a podcast where we try to allow people to forget about the pandemic, bring in some Bruin nostalgia, bring on some legends and some great storytelling sessions. And we've got a great one for you today. A story with Jerrold that it really is a Hollywood script ready to happen. And what I see through all of this so far on your end, Jerrold, is your level of persistence. Why has it been so important for you to be rebellious to people that have come across your life who have told you no?
Yeah. Well, I would say for me, it's a bit less about rebellion. Obviously, everything that I do, I move with the utmost respect and courtesy.
Sure.
But at the same time, for me, no opportunity can ever go wasted. An opportunity wasted is one that, not taken advantage of. And I feel like I am doing myself a disservice if I allow myself not to take advantage of the opportunities that I'm given.
So let's get into those opportunities. And you have always wanted the opportunity to play for the UCLA men's basketball program, a program just riddled with lore and how prestigious it is. And your path to getting there was certainly not conventional. You know
Yeah.
that. It was a different route, and that goes to the creativity of you and finding other ways to see your dreams and your goals come through. What was that route for you that enabled you to eventually get on the roster at UCLA on the men's team and then get a scholarship?
Yeah. So for me, when I was in high school, I was a decently recruited point guard, shooting guard combo. I had a couple of mid-major schools that were looking at me, but something that my parents always instilled in me from a young age was taking advantage of my opportunities education-wise. And UCLA, obviously being the academic powerhouse that it is, was one of the best academic institutions that I got into out west. And I decided, although I loved playing basketball, I felt like my education was going to take me a bit farther than basketball might have. And lo and behold, it ended up allowing me to do both. But so when I first started on campus as a freshman, a really good friend of mine, Easy Money Harper, who was a sophomore at the time at UCLA, introduced me to Wendell Farrow, who was the video director for the women's basketball team. And Easy actually passed away while we were at UCLA. But I was telling Wendell how I, wanted nothing more than to be a part of the UCLA basketball program. And at the time when I met Wendell, he was like, yeah, we have this opportunity to play on the practice squad, the scout team. You come out, you give it your all, and, maybe you'll get a roster spot. And I was like, oh, cool. So I show up the first day, and lo and behold, it's the practice squad for the women's team. And I ended up being a women's practice player for that first year of college, and he kind of I ended up being a women's scout team player that first year of college, and he kept his promise to me to where it was like, if I ended up giving him my all for that year, that I would be able to make the men's team. And when it came down to it, that's how it ended up happening.
Persistence, and you knowing that if you were to get that opportunity, it would not be a stretch because you had already known on the men's side the plays they were running. You would
Yeah.
develop relationships with the coaches as well. And I'm sure when Steve Alford would walk by and you're coaching with the women, maybe you hold that finish a little bit when you swish that three and just kind of show them, hey, man, don't forget about me.
Yeah. So the men's coaches would watch a decent number of the women's practices. But if you talk to Coach Broussard, who was an assistant coach at the time, who kind of helped me get onto the team, I used to ride this little razor scooter around campus to and from classes, and I would sit on the sidelines of the men practices after the women's practices and just, watch and learn the plays and, figure out, the opposition's plays and find different ways that I could be helpful if ever given the opportunity.
That opportunity came, and I remember reading that great article. And if you haven't, any of the listeners or viewers have not checked out the article by Sports Illustrated on Jerrold Smith, please do that. You will love
Yeah.
it. And in
I have
that article,
my bio too, if anybody
that's
needs to.
right. Yeah, on your Instagram, your Twitter, and you've got your website too, right? What's the web address so people can check out your website as well?
It's just JerroldSmith2nd.com. So that's JerroldSmithii.com.
So that is another avenue to look at what he's doing. We're going to ask him as well about some of his creative juices and how they're being used now that basketball is done for you and how you're still utilizing that in your next career. But you had that wonderful impression that you'd given off from Coach Broussard from that article when he said that you were the most persistent person he has ever met. And there's a story that I instantly thought of, Jerrold, when I hear that quote from Coach Broussard, and that was from the former UCLA offensive coordinator on the football team, Jedd Fisch, who was right out of college and was looking to break into the business as a coach. And he was down in Florida looking for that entry-level position. And at the time, Steve Spurrier was the head coach. And basically, Jedd kept saying, I want to get in. And they kept saying, good luck, kid. No way you're going to be part of this program at any level of being a coach. And that never deterred him. And he ended up using these little sticky notes and finding out where the head coach was parking every day. Put one on every single day. Must have drove Steve Spurrier insane. But
Absolutely.
at that point, what can't you do but give him that opportunity? So that led to now where he is, which is on the LA Rams on their staff last time I checked. But there's just so much parallels for you then as well. And Jerrold, there's also the fact that, yeah, you were a walk-on when you started on UCLA, but you seem to be really loving that role. And not that walk-ons don't love that role, but I think sometimes they don't get appreciated like they should be. You felt like you could make an impact as a walk-on that I don't think a lot of other walk-ons that have ever played the game feel like they can. How did you contribute to that team? Even if it wasn't just the stats or the wins and the losses necessarily, because I feel the cohesion that you brought and all of that did wonders for the program.
Yeah. I think for me, it was kind of sort of about embracing the role that I was handed and figuring out, how to best do that. And then hopefully it'll blossom into something else at the end of the day, which it did. One of the initial conversations that I had with Coach Broussard before I joined was him telling me like, hey, we have this opportunity for you, but, it's not going to be some sort of sexy opportunity. You're not going to be playing 10, 15 minutes a game. You probably won't play, if at all. And so I really took the time to embrace my role, starting in practice and making sure that I was giving 150% every day to make myself better, so that the guys that I was playing against that were actually getting in games could, get better and hopefully lead us to some wins. But I felt like, as I mentioned, it was tough for me when I wasn't on the basketball team, to walk around campus and not be a part of something. And I feel like a lot of guys get lost in being the superstar and not taking the time to enjoy being on a team and, everything that comes with, being in the locker room, traveling during the season, taking trips with your teammates and building those bonds that kind of forge the friendships that I'm fortunate enough to still be a part of today.
The level, and you've been open about this, the level of rejection that you've had to deal with, not just in your pursuit of being on the UCLA men's basketball team, and what an honor that is, but also as you sift through the world of entertainment and begin to get your foothold there. For those that have a hard time dealing with rejection, and I think everybody, whether they want to admit it or not, it affects people. I mean, come on, we all do. We're all sensitive to one extent or another, but you show over and over again that you are battle tested. And what can those people that have a hard time with rejection learn from you, and how you, despite those roadblocks, find a way?
Yeah. Well, I hope first and foremost it's a testament to how they look at me, not just before, but going forward. I never like to let an opportunity go to waste. But I feel personally that I've always been a bit hard-headed. It's kind of ironic that me and my parents were just sifting through like a bunch of old boxes of VHS tapes of me as a kid last night as we're here in quarantine and looking for stuff to do. We were just watching videos of me as a kid, and they would tell me no or not to do something, and I just continued to do it, even though they'd tell me no. And that's kind of something that just stuck with me. My parents would call it hard-headedness. I'd call it perseverance. And just, figuring out ways to, make what I would like to see happen for myself happen in the grimmest of situations and the best of situations. Just making sure that that you're the only person that can make or not make something happen for you, and that's something that I've kind of held close to the heart throughout my entire life.
You're listening to Jerrold Smith II, formerly on the UCLA basketball team, and you've waded through all of the rejection. I can't even imagine how many times you've heard no. And like you said, it will happen again, but that doesn't mean you won't get to where you want to get to. And that's what I love a lot about you, is that no, in a way, in how you found your career happen means go, because you always find a way around it. And you think about inspiring sports movies, Rudy comes to mind, although I think that movie was produced back in the 1600s. I would love to see your story, because on a grand platform like a blockbuster hit, I think it would be a blockbuster hit, because there is that millennialness, that's not a word, but let's go with it, of your story. And it has some parallels, I guess, in a way to Rudy. But if you were to title your life as a movie, or what you've done from nobody that thought you would make the UCLA men's basketball team to you doing that, just in that capsule, what would you title that movie of your life, or that part of your life?
I always like to think of things as more of like it's about the journey, not the destination. And rapper Nipsey Hussle always used to say, like, it's the marathon, not a sprint. And so I think that it is important to consider all things, like what led up to it, kind of my experience during that time. And I feel like the story is a bit unwritten as far as like where I'll end up. Like, obviously I'm still early in my entertainment career trying to figure things out. But something that I've kind of kicked around in the past is something like a long walk, or the walk of life. Obviously the word walk being thrown in there because of me having been a walk on. But, kind of embracing the journey of everything, and not just, making it like a singular story, like it's about the journey. It's about where you start, where the journey takes you, not necessarily where you finish.
And now, as you walk into the next chapter of your life outside of basketball and becoming a star in the entertainment game, you are, I would say, a self-proclaimed influencer. And you are, I mean, but that holds a lot of value with you. I mean, first of all, your story. Plus, I'm like, dude, this guy's got a whole lot of followers on Instagram. He's got 20,000, and it's not going to be long before he doubles that and gets into the hundreds of thousands. Just wait. We heard it. You heard it here first on the podcast. So that's going to happen. But like you said, you don't know what's in your future. You know what you want to do, or where the different talents you have and how you want to utilize them. But where does this story go next for you?
I personally, I love working within like the branded space of things. I love using certain platforms, whether it be my own or those of other influencers, talent, brands, to kind of, elevate stories of hope, stories of perseverance, not just mine, but, anything that, could be worth reading, watching, hearing about around the world. I really love what Nike and Adidas do in that space, as far as, meshing sports and entertainment and partnering with talent to be able to use not just the brand's platform, but the talent's platform to kind of, just elevate the entire story completely. So I'd want to do something kind of in that space, whether it be, kind of staying adjacent to basketball and sports, but, kind of working within the branding side of things, whether it be fashion or culture, and figuring out different ways to work with talent to just elevate, the story of it all.
You were part of the talent that took part in the basketball tournament. What year was that? A couple years ago, the Sons of Westwood.
2018 and 2019, I was fortunate enough to play. I'm not sure if we're going to do this year, but any future years, I'll definitely be a part of it. I guarantee that.
So you had a whole lot of notable names that were on that roster for the basketball tournament. And what was it like to be around those guys again, and to represent UCLA and get that opportunity and that stage?
Yeah, it was great. I mean, for me personally, it's always great. I still play basketball albeit not professionally, at least 3 to 4 times a week. But it's great to be around those guys that are, most of them, still playing professionally, whether that be in like the G League or overseas or respectively with some other club. And for me, it was great to be around the competition of it all again. It's great to see so many familiar faces and reconnect with so many people, and even some that weren't there when I was there, and kind of meet new people, make new friends. But it was amazing. It's an experience like no other. It's probably the closest thing that I can equate to the NCAA tournament in my experience. Obviously, because I have no NBA experience, I would imagine that NBA playoffs and championships obviously outweigh all of that. But it's just an amazing experience to be a part of. And for me, to still be considered amongst the group that can run with those guys I love it. I love it.
And what I love is also, and Jerrold Smith II is joining us. Follow him on Twitter at Jerrold H. Timms. Is that it seems that there's a fraternity within UCLA basketball. Like, it doesn't matter whether you were the guy that led the team in scoring, you played 35 minutes a game, or you got in bits and pieces throughout the season. Everybody seems to latch on together. And correct me if I'm wrong, Jerrold, but even after your eligibility gets exhausted, you guys come together and help each other, whether it's networking or influencing others and building up where you want to go in life, if it's not necessarily attached to hoops and being a professional.
Yeah, quite often, actually. And I would say that's a big shout out, big testament to Doug Erickson, who does a great job of running the program over there still. But also it's kind of a testament to the type of guys that they recruit or allow to play for UCLA. We were all in practice together. We're all out there, whether we played or not. We're all at games together. We're all putting our bodies on the line for the betterment of each other. Some, for the fun, some to create a career out of playing basketball. So we all understand that, we are all aimed to gain something from, giving it our best for each other. And then at the same time, it's just a great group of guys, a great group of alumni that, are held in such high regard that, you want to do nothing more than to look out for your brothers, whether you play with them or not, that went to UCLA just like you did.
I can't wait to see you guys. Once this whole quarantine thing lifts, I want to see you guys get back on the court. I would love to take in, because there's got to be a whole lot of trash talking taking place. Or maybe not you necessarily, or maybe, but
probably most of it's probably going to come from Tony Parker, who you interviewed earlier this week. I'm sure you got a good amount of that on the interview too.
So Tony Parker claims, I think I heard him say, he claims to be like top 5 in the world in Madden. Is he really top 5 in the world in Madden? I mean,
I don't know about top 5 in Tony's world, probably. I'll say that I'm not the best Madden player, and I think the couple of times that we played, he did beat me. But I feel like that's not something to hold your head too high on, because I don't play video games that often anyway. But he's pretty decent. He's all right.
He says that's one avenue where he likes to talk a lot of trash. He said that when he played Prince Ali, it was a slaughter. What's a funny to finish off this podcast, Jerrold? What's a funny Parker story that you remember playing with him, or something maybe at practice, or where you guys had a good chuckle or something?
Oh man. I feel like there's too many to name just
Sure.
one. And I hate being put on the spot like this, to where you have to like think of that one that really stands out.
We can do whenever it comes to mind, and if something comes later, we can do another podcast.
No, yeah. I feel like with Tony, there's not like one moment that just stands out. Like, obviously he talks a lot of trash, but his personality is like so exuberant, so uplifting. Like, he's just a guy that you love being around, whether that's just playing basketball or being around in general. I will say, to my memory, some of the most fun times were in practices, and not just one practice specifically, to where like, Tony would just hit like 3 buckets in a row, and then he'd start going at Prince like talking about other people that haven't hit a bucket or something like that. I don't even know what kind of example I could use, because there's literally the range of what Tony would say is literally from here to a million. But he would never fail to let you hear it if he's doing something or if you weren't doing something. And that's just my most fond memory of being around Tony. And I still talk to him kind of often, and he's the same exact way as you saw. The same exact guy. He never changes.
And apparently, don't play him in pickleball because he will beat you there. He is becoming a growing pickleball player. Which,
yeah, I was asking him what pickleball is because I've never seen him play pickleball. But I mean, if he says he is, I got to see it to believe it.
Yeah, talk is cheap. I can't. I would love to see a 6'9" Tony Parker playing pickleball, which basically is like a smaller version of tennis with some paddleball influences in ping pong, and there's some other really interesting rules. But and then the funny thing here was that he's like, yeah, I play this old guy. In the interview with Tony, he's like, yeah, I play this old guy in pickleball, and then he says, well, he's not that old. He's in his 50s. You know, it's like, it's just like, but it's just the way he delivers what he says is so funny, and
yeah.
we'll have to.
He's super animated, and that's what you love about Tony is he's always full of life.
Well, you are too. Both of you are very uplifting, which is what we all need during these times to help people lift their spirits and give us some hope, give us some entertainment. Always enjoy the chance to get into some Bruin nostalgia when we don't have any sports, but we can relive your story, which is Rudy on steroids. And so I can't wait to see this thing become a major motion picture. You are inspiring so many, and really just grateful to have you on as this platform to once again to put out your message and what you're all about. Thanks for doing this, Jerrold, and let's do this again sometime.
Yeah, for sure. As soon as I get it done, I'll send it your way. And thank you so much for having me. And big shout out to everybody out there in the world, and hope everybody's doing all right during all this quarantine craziness and stuff like that. That you're staying safe, staying healthy with all your families, and not driving each other too crazy like I'm trying not to with mine.
Oh my gosh. Follow Jerrold on Instagram, on Twitter, and I'm on Twitter at Brian Fenley. We'll do this again. Jerrold, thanks.
No problem.